Hello YouTube, it's Jonathan here. I am currently painting in the background, which is nice because the current color of my walls was horrible. So, yeah. Anyway, I am here at my furniture store and I wanted to do the review of the Prologue quickly. I had recorded my view and the review and the video got lost. So now I'm back on my HTC Evo 4G and here's my review of the Prologue. What I appreciate about Christopher Paolini's writing is the detail, which of course you find in a lot of fantasy novels. You find a lot of detail, but I appreciate that about his writing because he started when he was so young. I think 15, right? So I really appreciate that about his writing, and I think that that's awesome. In the Prologue, the first thing you'll notice when you start off is the introduction of two characters, a Shade and an Eragon. And what's interesting is he right off the bat makes it apparent this is a fantasy novel and it is unlike the others. He creates two new characters to the fantasy realm, an Eragon, which is maybe a play on a Minotaur, and a Shade, which is maybe a play on a mage or a necromancer, which I like that. I'm happy that he had the creative license in himself to create new characters, to give himself the freedom to make something that didn't exist before. I appreciate that. Also, something else you notice in the Prologue is it's like boom, right there you're in the middle of history. You are sort of fumbling into a scene that was already taking place before you got there. In fact, later on in the book, when Eragon is talking to Celembum, he says something very interesting. He says, "I didn't know you existed before you fumbled in here and disturbed my sleep, but that didn't mean that you weren't real before you woke me." And so what is really neat about that sentence that Celembum says that Christopher Paolini penned is that's sort of how it's like with this book and with the world that Christopher Paolini created. The same with Narnia. The same with the Dragonlance saga that I was reading before. Narnia, the innocence of playing hide-and-go-seek and hiding in a closet or a wardrobe, and suddenly you are in this other world. I just appreciate that it gives it history. It gives it a sense of this has already existed. You are not part of this, but we're going to allow you a glimpse into it. So I appreciate that. And I remember when I was in 3rd grade, my teacher told me not to start a story like that. I was writing a short story, and I started it in a similar fashion with a drill instructor yelling at his recruits. And she said, "Don't start a story like that in the middle of a scene because the reader doesn't have enough information." Well, hello, New York Times best frickin' seller, right? And look how he starts off in his Prologue, no less, with brand new characters that have... He starts off with a tall Shade, lifted his head and sniffed the air, with having no idea from before what a Shade could possibly even mean. So I appreciate that. I like that. Also, his use of color is interesting. The Shade is a ginger, apparently, but gingers have souls, if you remember that hilarious YouTube video. He's got red hair, he's got maroon eyes or red eyes, so he's a pissed-off ginger. The Ergos, with the horns and the way that they're fumbling around, his use of... Why did I say that? It has nothing to do with color. I have no idea. Anyways, his magic, the Shade's magic, is red. Whenever he performs magic, he's mentioning the color red, and then these elves come in, and he speaks gracefully about the elves, but the female elf, who we know as Arya now, but at this point we don't know who it is, the female elf performs magic and green light happens, the blue of the stone, the dark blackness of the night. There's a lot of detail. He uses colors to accentuate the scene and to kind of give you a glimpse into that, and I like that a lot. Also, something else I noticed is the very first page, he says, he's talking about the shade, and he says, he remained unnaturally quiet, a long pale sword in his hand, and a wire-thin scratch curved down the blade. And why do I like that sentence? Because it gives history and content to that specific character. It lets you know that there has already been battles. There has already been a feud in this person's life, in this character's life, that would give that wire-thin scratch down his blade. I like that. It's not just a blank canvas, a blank entrance into a blank world. It's a blank entrance into a pre-existing world. And I like that. And I don't know how many times I could possibly say that in this review, so I'll try and not say that any longer. Okay, so that's my review of the prologue. I guess that's what I've got for now. I've been looking into other people's videos and trying to expand the base here for our discussions regarding the first 3 books of the Inheritance Cycle. Stay tuned, post with me, video responses, comments. Let's start a good discussion here, and let's come up with some solid theories that we want to go forward with into the 4th book, and maybe we'll go through the 4th book together. I think that'd be awesome. But definitely want to go through the first 3 together, and you know, just to let you know, I'm not a newbie. I read these. I didn't read them when they first came out. Okay. But I got Eragon in 2006, I believe, the end of 2005. So I have gone through the years of waiting and the struggle of not having the book in my hand to read it, and I have, that was horrible, by the way. I just hate that. Not that I'm, you know, fanatic about Eragon, but I do love the series, but what I hate is wanting to continue a story and having absolutely no ability to do so, and having to rely on someone else to get me to that point. Someone who apparently either writes very slowly, or maybe he was preoccupied with some other ventures, which is what I think. Okay, that's my review, and I realize this is a long video, so I'll end it here. Appreciate your support. Continue participating.